The only problem with Santino and Andy is this podcast. Well, hello, one. Oh, wow. Well, hello and welcome back to your favorite movie podcast. My name is Andy Matzke, and I'm joined as always by Santino Vitale. We are two Ohio-based filmmakers who like to rock and roll. We also talk about movies. The whole premise of the show is we talk about a film that one of us has never seen before. We recommend movies to each other. It's very simple.
Andy, you seem to be having a hard time. Have you seen the show before?
No, this is my first time.
Hey, welcome to your first. I'm Santino, you're Andy, and we watch
Yeah,
movies that the other person hasn't seen.
yeah. I'm a little nervous. Uh, this week I think we're really back to what the show should be, which is you recommend a movie that's like a staple of cinema that we both really like, and then I just recommend a Hollywood blockbuster. We've only done it. Santino is nodding and smiling in approval of my statement, dear listener. Which really represents our friendship well. Is like you recommend a movie like Raising Arizona, which I love, you love, everybody loves it. Maybe a bit of a cult following. Then we both watch Frankenstein. We both don't like it. And then I recommend this movie to you, which I mean, to be fair, maybe this is a bit preemptive, but of all the ones I could recommend, it's not just slop. So there's that much. How are you doing this week before we get too far into things? How you feeling?
I'm I'm feeling I'm feeling like I'm on the edge of getting sick. I can feel the cold grip of death in my lungs. I can feel
Whoa, that like escalated so quickly.
I just I know that when I didn't get sick the way I do. Let me take longer to answer this. Let me see how many ways I can preface this. Andy, when I was born, I was I was born at a very young age. And no, let me
That's great.
I I normally get sick in the spring and the fall, and this year I didn't get sick either time, which is cool, but then it concerns me because I'm like, oh, it's gonna hit something stupid's gonna
Yeah.
happen. And normally it starts with a sore throat and then becomes something else, and then it moves up into my nose. And as you see, my nose, there's a lot of real estate there, Andy. So it usually camps out there for a while.
For our listeners
This
at home, there's
time,
a lot of real estate.
hey, it's not a nose, it's a duplex. Anyway, for for um for the listeners at home, it's doing the opposite this time. It started with a cough, then went into my nose, and now it's going into my throat, which means I hope everyone at home at the conspiracy board is figuring this
They're
out.
following, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
When it
not,
when
but
it goes to
they are.
leave, it's gonna go the reverse course, and I'm gonna have to deal with all this again. So it's a diabolical.
Ooh.
Um, this is my Larry David level of rant about this right now. It's
We
diabolical.
appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Mm. If I'm
Well,
not in next week's episode, you'll know why.
you'll know why because he died.
Yeah, yeah. You'll
Have
just
you
be Andy.
watched Stranger Things, the Netflix original drama, Stranger Things season 5, volume 1 yet?
None of season five. No, I've seen all the
Have
other
you
seasons.
have are you gonna I thought the whole reason of you getting Netflix was to watch this, and then I keep asking if you've watched it and you haven't. Are you waiting for all of it? Because if so, okay, you're not wait. He's shaking his head no. Then 4 syllables. Four and actually that's 8. He held
It's
up 8 fingers.
five words, too many fingers. No, what it is I was gonna watch it like on Thanksgiving. And then when I was with my family, my uncle was like, "Hey, that there Stranger Things season five looks pretty good." I'm like, "Yeah." And I know he's seen like some of the previous seasons, but not all. And he's like, "Well, if
Yeah.
you guys are gonna watch it, I'd like to check that out with you." I don't know why I'm doing like a old-timey, you know, hillbilly voice here,
Well, if
like a,
you boys are watching that show, I reckon
Mhm.
I'd like to watch it with you.
I reckon I'll be watching that show. Yeah, so
I know, Unc. It's okay.
yeah. So now we're kind of like, oh, we have to like figure out his schedule because football for most of the weekend. So it's not like he can be over here on Saturdays or Sundays and watch it. I'm like, what about Monday? He's like, well, that's when I watch The Voice. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So, and then Wednesdays I'm not here. So it's like, okay, I got to figure out like it's gonna have to be Fridays, and we're gonna have to watch like two episodes at a time to try to catch him up. So it's family has turned an otherwise easy thing into this complex
Wow. I mean,
machine.
the episodes get long. Spoiler alert, episode 4 is like an hour and a half long, and that's the shortest for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so they're
So,
doing like they did in season 4.
yeah.
I don't appreciate that.
I don't know, and maybe spoiler alert for this show, guys. If when we talk about Stranger Things 5, if Santino ever gets around to it, um,
Mhm.
I my spoiler as I lost my train of thought. Um, I don't know why they didn't just make another season.
Mhm.
Literally, like episodes 4 through 8 are all over an hour and a half long.
Mhm.
Why would you not just make what are we? I don't understand television,
I
let
don't know why
alone
they made a season 4 and 5. They could have ended it after season 3. 3 is my favorite season. It's
I,
big and absurd, and I love it.
I'm telling you, like 2 through 4 just blend together for me. So
When was did you how long ago was it that you saw that?
I think I watched 3 and 4 when they came out.
Hmm.
So
You
it's been
know,
however long.
I realized that we're I don't know how many minutes into this episode. We haven't actually talked about what the movie is
We don't
that we're
have
here to.
to. We're in charge of this show. This ship goes where we want. And in fact, there's something I've been meaning to say on the show, and I haven't gotten around to it. And you don't know where I'm going at all, which is fun. Um, Listeners of the show, faithful listeners of the show, will know of my father, Mark Matzke, and maybe you know of him just in general or from other larger productions that he's been a part of. But my dad has restarted one of his podcasts, and he's restarted his podcast Monster Study Group, and he's doing a new season, and it's called Unseen Cinema, and it is a blatant ripoff of The Only Problem, and he watches a movie he's never seen before and talks about it. And so, if you like hearing us talk about it,
Ah.
about movies, and you want someone who is much more articulate and care is much more appreciative of the films he watches, check out that. I'll leave a description. That's been going for a couple weeks now. I know the first movie he did, he's working through a lot of like noir, 40s, 50s horror. So he did a film called Black Friday,
Hmm.
which has Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi both in it,
Yep.
but they never share a scene. And he also watched a film, I think it's called The Uninvited. I'm really trying to get him. In fact, I'll probably force him to watch Evil Dead 2 for the show, for his show,
He's never seen
because
Evil Dead 2?
he's never seen Evil Dead 2.
Whoa.
And there's
You
a
should have invited him up to the little gorilla nest you had going that night that you had the double feature. You could have.
little gorilla, the little gorilla nest kind of lost me for a second, and then I understood.
Hmm.
It was a fun way. I just cleaned up the gorilla nest finally after a couple months.
Hmm.
For context, see our 80s horror spectacular
Hmm.
episode that like even by the only problem numbers, like nobody listened to. But that's okay. Um, listen to that show. It's great. It's fun. I'll leave a link down below. Once you get done with this episode, check it out. Santino doesn't even know I was gonna do that little plug. He's gonna grill me for it later, going,
Mm.
seriously? We're doing shout
Class
outs
action
now?
lawsuit is in the mail. My people,
Yeah.
Hunga
So
Dunga, Hunga Dunga, Hunga Dunga, and McCormick will be will be. I left out a Hunga Dunga. I left out the most important one.
oh, he's gonna be upset. This week we are talking about a very special film. This week we are talking about 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Star Wars, as they say it in Spain. Star
Yeah,
Wars.
that is how they say it
Hmm.
over there in España.
Hmm.
Um,
They always say the
this is
S first. España.
España.
Hmm.
And so uh, I recommended this movie to Santino. If you haven't seen this movie, I'll give you a synopsis. It's about the team that steals the Death Star plans, the team of rebels. who go and
Mhm.
steal the Death Star plans. If you haven't seen Star Wars, this is our weekly time where we go, if you haven't seen Star Wars, what are you doing? Because we
Yeah,
do
it's that
that quite
moment of the
frequently
show
on
where
the show.
we
Attack
condescend to
you.
viewers.
It's a
Oh man.
tradition around these parts. But
Yeah, look, if you don't know what condescend means, it means to talk down to somebody that's dumber than you. Okay, so just listen up. Uh,
listen to the educators talk. But
adults are
as really
talking.
I thought you had seen this movie,
Mm-mm.
even though we've at length talked about the movies you have seen and haven't seen. Um, and so I was very excited to actually be able to talk about this show, mostly because I just finished the prequel show, Disney Plus original Andor, which has 2 seasons that uh, I'm quite fond of. I can talk about that a little bit more later, but uh, that's what'd you think? What'd you think, Bucko?
I well,
Initial impressions. We
initial
always talk
impressions,
about what your the word we always talk about
the
is.
thing.
What was your expectations? There we go.
I had none. I had absolutely none going into it. It might surprise you, or maybe the listeners more than you, to learn that I was a Star Wars fan as a kid. I saw the original trilogy, A New Hope, etc., 4 through 6. Yeah. And then on VHS we had it. And then I
Hmm.
watched right after that it was the prequel trilogy, the horrendous Jar Jar Binks extravaganza. And I remember by the time I went to see episode 3 for my birthday. And by the end of that movie, I was done with Star Wars. I was like, like it was so bad. I was like, I'm done with this. So that was the last time I saw Star Wars anything was when I was 8. So
Wow.
going into this movie, I had to draw on a lot of memory of, oh, that's that ship and that's that person and that's that planet and that's I don't know what that is, but there it is. Look at it, it's there. So that was kind of my expectation going in. And the other thing of my expectation was I knew it's going to be Gareth Edwards, so I knew it was going to be I knew the visual effects was going to hold up. The thing that we'll get into maybe a little later is Gareth Edwards. I don't find his films, even though visually they hold up, he has this habit of kind of doing things in a bit of a not fully documentary style, but you know what I mean. Like he
Yeah.
keeps things very just kind of verite, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is there's really no real composition to about 80% of the shots. And so about halfway through the movie, I kind of leaned over to my dad, who was along for the ride, and you know, he is not a Star Wars fan at all. I leaned over to him about halfway through the movie and I said, I think I figured it out. Nothing is composed. It's just shallow depth of field and characters are in the center if they're talking, and then the camera just moves to whatever's happening. So it got on my nerves after a while. Shallow depth of field usually doesn't,
Interesting.
but
Yeah.
the shallow depth of field in this movie was too shallow. Like it just kind of there were people in conversations or in environments that were only like from me to you away, 6 or 8 feet away, and they were blurry. And I'm like, what are we doing? So
Yeah.
those were kind of my initial impressions. The photography was well exposed, and I like that aspect ratio 2 to 1. Big fan of that. I didn't immediately recognize anyone until well, I recognized Mads Mikkelsen, and then I recognized oh, you know,
Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker. Thank you.
We telepathically communicated there for a
Hmm.
second.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't anything weird at all. Um, I thought I recognized him. I'm like, that's not Forrest Whitaker in Star Wars. And then it was him, and it was odd. So yeah, I went into it not knowing what to expect. And yeah, I had
So let me maybe
that
even
was
like
the most
walk you through.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, well, let me walk you through. So it's a Star Wars movie,
Hmm.
but it doesn't start with an opening crawl.
No,
It doesn't even start with the word Star Wars.
no,
It just begins.
right. And they kept
So
the music.
immediately, and let me and like I'm not doing this to try to give the movie credit. I'm just trying to give it context.
Mm.
This is 2016. So this is right. I might be wrong. Force Awakens had come out the year before, which you haven't seen. I know.
No.
But a year before we had just gotten new Star Wars.
And that was J.J.
And
Abrams, right?
and that was J.J. Abrams. We'll we'll talk about that movie in a later episode briefly in passing. Um, so America is once again familiar with like the motifs of Star Wars, and this movie shows up and immediately has like none of the motifs of Star Wars. So it's really interesting. Like that is something that this movie does is from the word go, it it's different,
Hmm.
which is neat. And this is also pre Disney Plus era of Star Wars, and all like when you start to go down the drain of whatever. Like this is for Star Wars fans and just like your regular Joe Schmo. This
Hmm.
is like something different. And I think that's what this movie does, and it is really fun. And even in the visual style, which admittedly, there must have been something up with our projector because the shallow depth of field was like really making focus difficult. So some of the movie just wasn't quite in focus part of the time because the depth of field was so shallow. Because I think our projector was slightly out of focus. And so, I mean, I noticed that this time around, but it, I hear it is a very interesting style. But even what this movie does different is, I mean, it shoots it not like, and this is kind of the wow, how original, but it shoots it not like a blockbuster, which is neat. And that's what then Star Wars emulated from everywhere else. But this was like which I mean, you don't even have that point of reference. But like that's what's neat is like even though it's this kind of simple verite style, it's treating something that up until that point has only been shot like a blockbuster and maybe like not to denigrate it, but like a blockbuster from the 70s. It's it then shoots it like as it would if it's real, air quotes. And I think it does that very well. And I think, I mean, I noticed it a lot when I first saw it, and now it kind of, I don't want to say it doesn't hold up, but there's so much more like it that it's not unique. And I mean, I'll admit this too, and this isn't even what I was alluding to earlier. On the heels of watching the prequel show for this, it was like I don't know how well this movie is going to hold up because that prequel show, I mean, not to set any expectations, but because I enjoyed that prequel show so much. Like that was so good. I don't know how well this is going to hold up. And it held up I think very well in like some surprising ways. So, I mean, I want to put a pin in Gareth Edwards till later in the conversation,
Hmm.
but his influence is throughout this movie for
Oh yeah.
sure. Um, okay. So where do we typically go? Characters, plot,
Well, yeah,
hit me.
plot typically, I mean, you know,
Which with this movie is a very interesting thing to set
this
up
is
because it,
hilarious, by the way. So, you know, the movie starts
yeah.
and we get the backstory of our main character, and then, you know, okay, mom gets killed, dad gets taken, she gets taken in by Forrest Whitaker inexplicably, and now we fast forward and she's older and she has the biggest pair of chompers on a British woman I think I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, you know, like
Trust me,
if
all the people I know with Santino, it was not a bad thing.
This is true. This is true. But I remember thinking, dang, like the minute that you could see him in her profile, like her mouth never fully closes through this whole movie. And I just remember thinking, you know, if the Death Star is such a big problem, all they have to do, like she could just run in front of the laser and go, hee, and just like smile, and it would just bounce off.
What if that's how
The
this movie ended? It was the big buildup, and then it actually accidentally hits her in the teeth,
I would have loved that
and then they're
actually.
fine.
But yeah, so I think
I asked you about the characters, and so far all we have
yeah.
is her teeth, by the
I
way.
mean, all she is as a character is her teeth. Let's be honest. She's pretty
Yes.
one-dimensional. So we spend the first hour
So
and like,
I'm sorry that I don't know if you got me laughing there, but Patrick Willems, I listened to something he did. He's a film guy on YouTube, and
Hmm.
he did a podcast talking about this movie. And he mentioned, and I don't know why I maybe laughed so hard this time, but he mentioned very matter of factly that a lot of her plot development happens off screen,
It
and it's
does.
true. Like, yeah, but
It
that's not
happens off screen and it happens like very matter of
fast.
factly. Yeah, it's like she shows up and then we find her in a also this movie jumps around a lot. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but this is how much the movie jumps around. It's like now there's this plan, now there's these people, now look at this guy. Oh, he's going to do that. Well, hold on, put a pin in those five people. We're going to come back over to her now, and you catch up with her. They like bust her out of this jail, not a jail cell, but like this portable prison paddy wagon, space paddy wagon. And they're like, you're going to join the Rebel Alliance. She's like, ah, screw you guys. My dad's dead, and I'm just mad at everybody. And they're like, maybe he's not, or maybe she was like, maybe he's not. I don't really remember. All I know is like it was convoluted, and she didn't give a crap about helping them until like when her dad died in front of
And
her.
then she was a leader.
She's the leader. She's like, we can't sit around. I'm like, you've been in the revolution for like 2 seconds. These guys have been in it for
Yeah.
like 30 years, and you're like, I'm just gonna girl boss my way to the top of the ladder here. So, you know, we spend the first like hour, without exaggeration, we spend the first hour and 20 minutes because I remember looking when it hit me, I looked at how much time we had left, and we had 59 minutes left. We spend the first hour and like
10 minutes.
hour and 10. Yeah, because this movie's like an hour and 2 hours and 13 minutes. So we spend the first hour and 13 minutes. It's just setup. The plot
Yep.
actually hasn't happened yet. Because when they all get in the thing, and I know I'm jumping ahead for the viewers at home, you don't know what I'm talking about, but like she and the other dude and the Asian Udo Kier who's blind, but the force is with me and the me is with the force and the force is with him.
Yeah.
All those guys, when they all get in the thing and they're like, we're just going to take off, and you're like, you don't have clearance. And he's like, well, we're Rogue One, so nah, we're going to leave. When he said Rogue One and you get the title drop, I realized, oh my gosh, the plot's, this is the plot. Everything we
Yeah,
know up to this
to
point is not the plot.
be fair, everything is very important setup.
Yes, but could we have done that setup in 30 minutes or 40? Could we have tightened up some loose ends? Did her father really need to still be alive? Like, could we have gotten?
Yeah.
I don't have the answers to these questions. It just hit me that, oh, the reason I'm having such a hard time focusing is because we haven't actually gotten to the plot. We've just been setting up everything so that the plot can happen for the next hour. Oh, okay. And then at that point, then I was more invested. I was like, oh, I know what we're doing now. I know what the stakes are. They're going to go get the thing from the place and do some things. It's like, all right, I'm done with things. I can do that.
I
But
like
up to that
stuff. I
point,
like things.
I like things and stuff. But up to that point, it was just like endless parade of meeting characters, setting up plot points that then got partially resolved that were the catalyst for her to suddenly make a slightly less selfish decision. As a lead character,
Yeah.
she's kind of like you could
Well,
have killed her and had like the main guy be the lead character, and he
I
would have worked.
think this movie is helped immensely by the fact it has a great ensemble cast. That there's like four other, four or five really good other characters in Cassian Andor, the guy, K Tuso, the robot, Chirrut Imwe, the blind guy, Blaze Malbus, funniest name, guy with the gun, other
Yeah,
Asian guy, aka
other
other
Asian
Asian
guy,
guy,
right?
and Bodhi, the pilot. I watched this movie today, so this is
Okay,
fresh. I
I
was gonna
couldn't even
watch it.
keep their names straight. I watched it
I
last
was,
night.
I mean, I've seen this movie like several times
Okay,
as well, and so I've probably seen this movie a half dozen times, and
wow,
so I like me some Star Wars. What can I
yeah,
say?
yeah.
Um, and I was gonna watch it last night, and then friend of the show and local historian Jack Prochaska came over to my house, and he stayed later than I thought, so I wasn't able to watch it. That's very important to the listeners at home
Mhm.
that Jack came over, and that's why.
Yeah, blame it on Jack.
Yeah,
Blame this whole episode on Jack. I would have liked the movie better if Jack hadn't busted into your
yeah,
house.
I know, I know.
So
I just
come on,
realized my one
Jack.
light's off, and I don't know how that happened. It's really confusing me.
Ghosts, I think.
Yeah,
Hmm.
huh? Maybe that's what you saw when the room got darker, but
Maybe. Oh
but it
yeah. No, that would be what it is because it was like
but
right at the
it the light
beginning of.
switches off. Oh
Well,
well,
then
who
your light
cares?
bulb went out.
No, because the lights. It doesn't matter, guys. It's okay.
Guys, this is way more important than the plot to the movie. We got to
Then
get to
Rogue
the
One.
bottom of why Andy's light went out.
So, uh, the plot of see, this is part of what I don't understand, and this is maybe and because you'll never make it all the way through that Andor show. At the way end of what's neat about Andor, spoiler alert for Andor, if you like this movie at all, you'll love that show. Skip forward a lot till I'm done talking about the show. I'll make it quick. Andor sets up the Death Star, kind of, and the way end, because the way end of Andor is setting up the way beginning of this movie is setting up Andor's arc. But they know there's some sort of weapon. And then when they're like, well, there's some sort of weapon. What? In this movie, it we already kind of had that, which I get this is what happens when we do prequel of prequel. But that's like the one thing that I don't even in this movie, they're kind of like, there's a super weapon. And they're like, no. And it's like it just blew up a place. Why are we kind of like no? So I don't know. That's I don't
They're
know even
they're like no because according to the Federation or whatever, I forget what
Empire,
the well yeah,
Empire.
according to the Empire, they were like that wasn't an explosion. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And it's like, but it's like, I feel like that'd be a big deal, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I mean that's of all the things in this movie, that's probably quite realistic to how real government works. They'll do something in front of your face and go, that wasn't what
It
COVID,
was, and
the vaccine is effective, guys, and it's safe. You
yeah,
and standing
safe and
6 feet
effective.
apart will actually work.
2 weeks to flatten the curve
Two
is
weeks to flatten
basically
the
the
curve.
Death Star, is
Yeah,
what we're
that's the Death
saying.
Star. Yeah. This what we're saying is the government is the Empire and
And we're
Darth
the Rebel
Vader and
Alliance.
yeah. Yeah, we're the Rebel Alliance.
So, okay, I'm trying to get this out of you.
Yeah.
What else did you like? What did you like?
What
Tell
did
me
I
tell me
like?
three things you liked, young man,
Okay.
about this
I
movie.
mean, well, I like the score to this has nothing to do with this particular movie, but the score to Star Wars is iconic. So, they used it, I think they had new motifs within it. And I think at that point John Williams was still alive, so I think he was still doing stuff for the trilogy. And so for the franchise, I should say. So, that was cool and kind of nostalgic. And the effects were really well done. Um, mm, I'm trying real hard to get to
What
three.
characters did you like?
There were really no characters. Let's be honest. I'll tell you, here's the
That's
character I
not
liked. Here's the
that's
character I
wow.
liked. There was this weird midget Wookiee looking thing for like 2 or 3 seconds that went ah! And like it was piloting a ship. I love that guy. That guy was cool. I
Okay.
hated that there was an obviously digital Princess Leia. And I knew about that going in.
Yeah.
And I knew about the digital Peter Cushing. And crap like that bugs me regardless of the year that the movie comes out because you couldn't just find like if you're gonna do that, you couldn't just find an actor that kind of looked like them, do a little bit of makeup and just be done with it. Like
Yeah.
I know you've never seen it, but in Halloween Kills, there's a moment in Halloween Kills in the cold open. And the cold open is a flashback to 1978. And it's literally a flashback moments after the events in the end of the original Halloween, right? And they did a really great job with it because they they had my cat is interrupting the festivities here. They have a moment in that where, for the first 9 minutes in this cold open, they completely, very closely replicate the cinematography of the original. It looks like a 70s movie. They kind of mix the sound differently. The score is different. Everything's period. And there's a moment where Dr. Loomis shows up. And of course, Dr. Loomis, the actor who plays Dr. Loomis, is not alive anymore. He was old even then, so he's been dead. Here's the crazy thing. There's a moment where he walks into the scene and delivers lines and like interacts with the actors. And I thought, oh, they either found unused footage of him and like comped him in, or I don't know what's going on. Here, they like their key grip or something was just kind of a fatter middle-aged guy who was balding, who looked kind of like the actor, and they put some makeup on him and dubbed his voice, and it's a perfect Dr. Loomis. When you look at it, it's like a flippin' magic trick. And in this
Yeah,
movie, you see Peter Cushing from behind, and you're like, you know two things. One, it's Peter Cushing, and two, it's digital. And then he turns around and kind of moves like a video game. I'm like, well, there's that.
I think the reflection shot is really good
Yeah,
because
that's
it's a
cool.
reflection. And so I think if you played the scene a little different, or if like
Hmm.
they're both looking out at the Death Star, and it's kind of over the shoulder of both of them, whatever that's called. Oh, there's a filmmaking word for it. Doesn't matter.
Hmm.
If they're like over both of their shoulders, looking at them,
Right.
and it's just from behind, and then maybe you get like a profile,
Yeah.
but it would have been fine because I think the reflection shots are really good. It's just
They hold up the
everything else
best.
looks bad. I think Leia looks really good until she moves.
They all look really good until they move. That's the problem.
And then, yeah,
Uncanny Valley. Animation's where it always throws you off. So, yeah, I'd say I really didn't get invested with any of the characters until the last hour, once we actually got to the plot. And at that point, I found that I was reasonably invested in the lead, and I was reasonably invested with Andor. And they're doing some cool stuff in space, and they have that great plot device where you keep piling problems on. So it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna go down there and get this. Oh, well, the shield's on. Well, okay, well, we can just do this. Well, now they're up there, but we can't contact them because we got to get the shield open. But oh, well, this is, and we got to go get this thing. And so that's cool. Like I like that. That's creative writing. That's a good way to do an action scene. And I think when I realized that we still had an hour left of the movie, I thought, well, this is going to be like a piece of cake. Just go down there and get the drives, right? So like I was wondering how we were going to level it up, and they didn't disappoint. So for me, this movie really, in my mind, only exists as an hour-long featurette. Like basically, I kind of forgot everything from the first hour and 10 because it kind of didn't impact me. Everything in the last hour was cool. Um, and the action was pretty good, and there's a lot of real weird moments. And this isn't the problem with this movie. This is the problem with just Star Wars logic in general, specifically the stormtroopers. Okay, they got those big helmets on. You mean to tell me a guy hits you in the head with a stick and it just knocks you out? I could be wearing a bike helmet and you could hit me with that stick and it's not going to do anything, let
yeah,
alone a full head mask. And they're wearing armor, and then you shoot them and they're just done. And it's like, well, what was that armor for? You might as well be running around bare-chested because sticks are knocking you out and lasers are going right through you. So, and they can't ever hit anything. That's like a
yeah.
Star Wars, that is a Star Wars classic, is that's just,
Even
even in the
even
original movies, they couldn't
Well,
hit
even in the
anything.
originals and even the like, I think they're called Death Troopers, those black ones that look
Hmm.
super cool. Like at one point in the movie, just can't hit
They
anything.
can't hit anything. You could be 2 feet away from them. They'd be like pew pew pew. It'd go in every direction except forward. So that's typical of
Yeah.
the franchise, which is fun. I found myself like talking through it and like commenting stuff like this in real time. It was kind of Mystery Science Theater as I was going, not like outright making fun of it, but calling out like logical problems and going,
Yeah.
why couldn't they just do this or why didn't they do that? And so this brings me
There's a
to my
there's a couple moments like that
yeah.
for sure. And a couple there's a whole one thing I noticed. One thing, and I wasn't even watching it that closely, to be fair. I noticed is Bodhi, the pilot, he originally goes to get the cable and it's like
Hmm.
too short. And
Hmm.
then once he works up his
It's
courage,
perfectly long.
it's fine.
It's as long as he needs it to be. Because that's what stops him is it's too short.
Yeah.
And he jerks like a dog on a chain. And then about a minute later, it's like twice as long. The thing that breaks this movie for me, but I'm willing to forgive because the last hour was decently enjoyable, is really what the whole thing is about, which is her dad built the Death Star, like drew up the designs of the Death Star under protest. He built in a weakness so that the
Yep.
rebels could win. And it was so small that no one else could really tell, like it's buried in the plans. If you could do that, then why didn't you just build in a similar weakness so that the moment you pressed fire, the whole thing just exploded? Couldn't
Yeah,
you do that? Like if you could build in the thing that he did, which is arguably harder, it's like this weird vent that goes directly to this other thing. And there's like you'd have to think at some point people were building this thing going, why does this vent go directly to the reactor? And they're like, don't worry about it. But the whole thing with like the button, that's just wiring. That's like some wiring and some code, like a computer
yeah,
override to just like you could have like a Trojan horse virus in the system. And this is, by the way, this is space.
yeah.
This isn't a galaxy far, far away where people still talk like they're from España and they're still Asian or whatever. But we're going to ignore that. The point is, this is in the future, distant space far, far away. They
A
arguably
long
have,
time ago in a galaxy far, far
but
away.
they arguably have more advanced technology than we do now. And if I could create a Trojan, or if I knew how to code and could create a Trojan horse virus that could go into a computer so that when you press the space bar, your computer fries its circuit, why couldn't you create the same type thing in the Death Star so that when they pressed fire, the whole thing just explodes and kills everybody on board?
Good
That's
question.
my thing, which I know it's Star Wars, so it's like I said, I'm willing to let it go because I
Yeah.
enjoyed the last hour, but it's a massive, massive flipping plot hole.
Well, the whole plot of this movie is explaining
The plot
Ace
hole of New Hope.
the
Yeah.
like I wouldn't say it's a plot hole. I think that's an overused term,
Yeah,
you know,
I never thought it was. I'm being
but
facetious
but
here.
the yeah, but the interesting little fact that there is this little vent that if
Mhm.
something accidentally gets down there, you blow up the whole thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I never questioned that. I feel like at the end of this movie, I think I turned to Dad and said, you know, this movie answers that question that nobody had. Like the prequel
Yeah.
was unnecessary because I don't think anybody really ever, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I never questioned the vent. I just always
What
figured, look, the Death Star is heavily fortified and there's all these fighters around. The odds of you actually being able to get close enough to it to get down in the trench and fly long enough without being shot down to do that is, you know,
Well, I think to be fair, what this movie is answering is and you might know this, and I'm over explaining, but there's a line in the original opening crawl that mentions the rebels who stole the plans.
right.
Like, that's what this movie is explaining, less
Mhm.
so than
True, but that's
that,
also a
which is
question
still,
nobody
I
had.
mean, it's,
They stole the plans.
it's a neat, and this is something Patrick Willems was talking about. Um, a lot of Star Wars spin-offs these days don't need to be visual media or movies. I think Rogue One deserves it. I think
Mhm.
Rogue One makes it. But like the Han Solo movie they made is
Mhm.
literally just based off like a throwaway line of dialogue from the original trilogy. Is
Mm.
literally like essentially the whole plot, air quotes, of that movie is that. And so I think I've seen that movie. I must have seen that movie at some point, and I could not tell you a thing about it except
Is it
Donald
like
Glover's in it as
is
Lando
it like how he
Calrissian.
gets is it how he gets the
It's how he meets. It's every like it's a Han Solo origin movie,
right, so
but it's
how he gets the Millennium Falcon
how
and
he gets
where
the Millennium
he
Falcon, how he
adopted
meets
Chewie.
Chewie,
Uh,
how him and Lando go back. Which
yeah.
Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian is incredible.
Mhm. That's actually that's a good casting choice.
It's great. Like it's yes, it's the redeemable thing of that movie. Woody Harrelson's in that movie also. Great cast. Silly movie,
Yeah.
but um, with Rogue One. Uh, See, it's so interesting because it falls at such a weird time in Star Wars lore because and by lore I mean chronologically when it came out because it's right before Santino's dying on the other end of the phone. Oh gosh. He's okay. Anyways, it follows in such an interesting time in Star Wars lore because it's right before the fan base just blew up and divided itself. So, this was like this like people liked The Force Awakens. They're like, "Yay, it's kind of neat. Are we just redoing the original trilogy?" And then everyone loved this movie. I think like of Star Wars, people who like Star Wars tend to love this movie
Mhm.
for whatever reason, which is really interesting and I will put a pin in that. And then it all went downhill. So,
Mhm. Well, and I, again, I'm talking
you're talking.
I'm talking. But I'll give you that, I I agree. I think this is an even though it doesn't necessarily need to exist, it doesn't answer any burning question. Because again, if the opening credit crawl said, "Oh, they stole plans," it's like, use your imagination. They stole plans. Like we know how that works. Ocean's 11, they took it off a thing, they download a hard drive, who knows? That said, I think that of all the ways to have wedged or to have milked the franchise, I think that this is actually like kind of a cool concept. And here's where this movie earned my respect. The last hour worked, and they had the guts, spoiler alert, to kill the two main characters at the end. They
They
don't
kill all
escape.
the characters.
Yeah,
They
they're
kill
just gone.
all the yeah.
And yeah, true, they do. They kill all the characters. And so it's a kamikaze mission, which is interesting. There's almost no movie, especially action movie or what would otherwise be kind of a family-ish, big blockbuster movie where it's kamikaze and everybody dies. Fast and the Furious, everybody lives through ridiculous circumstances.
Yeah.
Every other movie, everybody usually lives. There's like they've got plot armor. And with this one, I remember with like 15 minutes left to go, I remember thinking, well, I wonder what we're going to do here because I know none of these characters are in any of the other movies, and you don't need them anymore. And I knew that once I saw them shoot the laser and the nuke goes off, right? I remember thinking, if this movie has the guts to kill its main characters, that'll be really weird. That's a ballsy decision. And
Hmm.
sure enough, like 5 minutes after I said that, they just get wiped out. And I went, wow, slow clap time, like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I've never seen that I can recall offhand a summer blockbuster franchise movie that's PG-13 kill everybody. I've never seen that
Yeah.
happen. So that for that reason alone, it earns my respect. Um, I like the way that they wrapped it up at the end there because I remembered enough of A New Hope, even though I saw it when I was like 7. I remembered enough of how New Hope starts. And I realized, oh, there's that ship, and then they're gonna have the escape pod, and then the whatever the big ship. I can't remember the name of the big ship. The one that Vader's on, the big triangular
Yeah.
one. Starts with
It's a big
that big
ship.
one. Whatever those are, it's like there, and he goes after him, and then he boards the ship and kills everybody. But Leia's already I don't remember if she's already escaped or if they might take her captive. Either way, I kind of remembered some of the visuals of that and like what the crew looked like. I was like, oh, they matched that pretty well. That was cool. That's like it's coming
Yeah.
back around. So it's kind of funny because it gives you a context and you go, oh, when we tune into A New Hope, we're literally tuning in like a few minutes after this all just happened. Like that all just blew up and then New Hope starts.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
It's cool. It's also kind of silly because Vader is awesome in that hallway scene, and then from A New Hope he just and catches up, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty funny. Like, I mean, it's great, and like again, as a Star Wars fan, kind of on hiatus, I remember seeing that the scene in theaters and just losing my mind because that's like what you always want to see Darth Vader do, and you never get in anything else movie wise. And so it's such a fun treat. And this movie isn't perfect, but it does a lot of things right. And it's really, I don't know. I'll I mean this might be quick for us, but if you want to give some of your continuing thoughts or maybe concluding thoughts. There's the concluding thoughts, and then I want to talk about like the production nuts and bolts of this movie, but I don't want to tell you production nuts and bolts before you tell me your unfiltered wrapping it up
Yeah.
because
So you're
I
talking
don't
like
want that
wrap it
to
up,
affect.
final thoughts, rating, that kind of
If you
thing.
want, I mean, there's more we can talk about. If you want to talk about more, I mean, we talked about the effects. I think
Hmm.
they're really good. This is
Yeah.
like pre-volume
Well, when you say
stuff.
wrap it up, what are you looking for?
I meant like wrap it up,
Okay.
but we're not too far in this episode, but I don't know
Right.
what else we'd talk about. So,
I'd say overall, it, like I said, it earns my respect because it does something I've never seen a blockbuster ever do. like a summer
Yeah.
family crowd-pleasing blockbuster. I wish that I didn't know about A New Hope because no, seriously, because then them killing them at the end of the movie would have been like mind-blowing because I'd be like, well, but now what, you know? And then
Yeah.
you could go into New Hope. Like honestly, I think the ideal way to watch Star Wars, if you're gonna, have somebody include this in the canon, would be to start with this movie, have them have no, never seen anything else, and then immediately go into New Hope, and then realize, oh, that
Yeah.
really has nothing. These aren't the characters you're looking for. These are different characters, right? And now we're going to do the real story. Like, this is all just a prelude, right? But that would be interesting. See, for
Yeah.
me, the minute I realized, oh, we don't see them in the series ever again, I was like, I wonder if they're going to kill him. Again, I'm still impressed, but I wasn't shocked. I was just mildly surprised. So it earns my respect for that. The last hour was cool. The action was pretty decent. I didn't really care about the characters deeply, and I only kind of cared about them once we got to the last hour. Um, the movie had teeth. The movie had little Chewbacca midgets and an Asian guy who was with the Force, and the Force was with him, and he was with the Force, and the Force was with him. And there were a couple moments I laughed at that I don't know if I was supposed to, but they were kind of funny. And the robot was just a buff C-3PO voiced by Alan Tudyk. So I was like, okay, we checked that box. So yeah, final thoughts. I'd give this like a rating. It's fine. I'd give it just a 6. Not a 6.2, not a 6.5, just a 6. If I want to be generous, maybe a 6.1. I don't dislike Star Wars, but the time of my really being into Star Wars was many moons ago in a galaxy far, far away. And so,
That's no moon.
yeah, 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 exactly. Um,
I don't know what that means
it's on the
necessarily.
butt of Venus. Um, Venus has a butt, you guys. Um, yeah, so I'd say it's a 6. And effects wise, it's like, I mean, we don't really do this when we rate things, but like effects wise, it's like an 8 or a 9. Like all the
Hmm.
effects are solid, everything holds up. And I know, given the way Gareth Edwards often shoots, and especially with this shallow depth of field, I don't envy any of the effects people that worked on this because that must have been brutal and horrible and torturous because they didn't have any good points. It's a lot of there's handheld all the time. Things are dark. It's shallow
Yeah.
depth of field. You're whipping the camera around like, like you own it. And it's like, well, I guess we're just gonna have to brute force this into existence. So they did a great job. Um, overall, I didn't really feel one way or another about it. I felt basically about as much as I thought I'd feel. And the first hour really frustrated me because nothing was really, I don't want to say nothing was happening, but it was all set up. And once I realized that, I got a little perturbed.
It was all set up and it was all this is happening. And then that and
Yeah.
then this guy. And
Yeah.
then it
I
is very
didn't I
much
didn't really like
scatterbrained.
that.
That's fair. I think when it comes to me rating this movie, it's one of those where it's like kind of difficult because subjectivity creeps in. And I'd even
Mm.
say like,
No, I mean you've
and this
seen
is
it like 6 times,
I've
so.
seen it a lot. Also, and this is so interesting to me, but the character of Cassian Andor makes so much more sense given the prequel series that they had no intention of making when they made this movie. That's like
Hmm.
what I find so interesting is like it's a this movie's a prequel that, we didn't really need, and the spin-off prequel show they had no intention of making. Tony Gilroy, the guy who made that show, who worked on this movie, we'll talk about that more in a second. Um, never had, never wanted to make more Star Wars after this. And then he goes and he makes a show that then, and every single time, and like, you kind of have to take my word for this. And again, I don't want this to like read, I'm not trying to influence your opinion, but anytime Andor's like, you don't know what I've been through, it's like, well, now as the audience, we do know what you've been through, and you
Mm.
seem less like a jerk who's like, come on, just get with the rebellion already.
Mm.
And it's a guy who's really given like his entire life, everyone he's loved is either dead or left him because of the rebellion. Like this
Mm.
is a guy who's given it all. And so that even gives credence to like him not shooting her dad, because he's done worse, but also he's like having his doubts about how ruthless the rebellion's been. Like
Hmm.
it's all these little things that like shouldn't work as well as they do, with it all being like this weird scatterbrained thing
Right.
back and back. But it's like, and I hate to say it too, because it's almost so nerdy, but it's like having the look at that character that we do now, it's
Hmm.
like he makes so much more sense. I mean, than just like for the rebellion, like come on, Jin. Which then, and this is what I find so interesting, and I've yet to give my rating for the show, for the movie, but why I don't understand in a weird way how Star Wars fans like this movie, a certain type of Star Wars fans like this movie because of Jyn Erso,
Hmm.
because she like girl bosses her way through the movie,
Yeah, the movie kind of doesn't even have to be about her.
which is the complaint by Star Wars, certain Star Wars fans, as they should, because there's been this whole whatever with Disney Star Wars. But that's the case for this movie. Like, yeah, she doesn't need to necessarily be there. This is, I
Hmm.
mean, this is the movie that introduced Star Wars fans to and other characters who we really haven't gotten more of, and they've done more with Forrest Whitaker's character. But like, I don't understand how Star Wars fans like this movie because foundationally, it's part of what they hate. But here's the twist though. The story's good enough. The plot's interesting enough that I don't think they notice. And I would say down to the point of the only white character is Jyn Erso. Like I mean like
Hmm.
of the main ensemble,
Yeah, she is.
which the movie doesn't shove that down
White
your throat.
savior.
The movie doesn't shove that down your throat, but like if your
Them big
problems
English
with
teeth.
and I'm shaking my fist and whatever. If your problems with, oh, they're pushing diversity in Star Wars,
Mm.
but I love Rogue One, it's like it's a white lady is the only
Mm.
like lead white person in this movie because believe it or not, Diego Luna, he ain't white. So like,
I do think it's
I don't
hilarious
know.
though that there's a guy with a Spanish accent in a galaxy far, far away. I don't know why that's so funny
Yeah.
to me. That's funnier than even the English accent. Because English
That's fair.
English accents, like when you think about it, English accents comprise a pretty good percentage of like Western continents and even non-Western continents like Africa. So think about it. You get English accents on Great Britain, you get them in New Zealand, you get them in Australia, and you get something that, and for anybody who's listening, I'm not saying an English accent and a South African accent are identical, but to the untrained ear, they have a lot of similarities. And so it's kind of interesting that you can have different languages that still produce similar sounding accents. So I don't even take issue with kind of an English accent in space, but a Spanish accent has one origin. And to be like, they sound like that in space is really funny to me.
I mean, you
Even
can
funnier than
have,
Asians in space.
I mean, there's two places in the world at least where that can be. There's, a couple, it's on a couple continents. There's
Yeah, but it's only
all of,
one language that gives you
yeah,
that accent.
that's
My
fair.
point was there are multiple languages that give you an English accent. So,
Yeah. But that's interesting. So my rating, and this is hard, and this is where I say it every week. I need to like write down what I've given
you
every
do.
movie on this show
Mhm.
because I'm never sure. But I would give it like a 6.5,
Yeah.
7, because plot wise, it's good. It's a good plot, but it doesn't hold up if you think too much about it. And what I mean is like I think the fact it was not a great production
Mhm.
shows. So with transition. Also, I don't know if Rogue One has my heart, so because it's a part of this like franchise I grew up liking, and then I don't know. By the way, and I'm gonna guess it doesn't have Santino's. So the thing that's so interesting about this production
Mhm.
is that even like this is the big reveal. If you're like, wow, I loved this movie, and then you learn about this, it's like mind blowing. But if you're kind of like, meh, maybe this helps make sense. So Tony Gilroy, the guy who wrote the Bourne movies and went on to make the to showrun Andor, was brought in to kind of fix up the movie.
Yeah.
The man was brought in after the director's cut was finished, and he has a screenwriting credit, which from initial Googling means he wrote at least a third of the movie after they were already in post production, which I think is hilarious. And like Tony Gilroy has like barely talked about this movie, probably because he like can't. But I listened to an interview with him, and it was so funny to hear him talk about this because he said the thing where he said, you know, what the easiest thing to say is he said this to the person who was interviewing him, which was on The Moment with Brian Koppelman, said, you know what the easiest thing to say is? You'll understand this better than anyone else, and I know you have a lot of geeks. I came in after the director's cut, and I have a screenplay credit in arbitration that was easily won. So he says he easily got that screenwriting credit. And so he said, well, and the person interviewing him was like, it's clear you remade the movie. And he's like, were you worried? And he said, no, because they were in, like, he said, I'm not a big Star Wars fan. So it wasn't like emotional. And he's like, he straight up says, I don't like Star Wars. I've never been interested in Star Wars. So I don't have reverence for it whatsoever. I was unafraid about that. And they were in such a swamp. They were in such a swamp. They were just in so much terrible, terrible trouble that all you could do is improve on their position, is a quote of his.
Wow.
That he was like, not, I just can't, like, he said that publicly. He said, they were in such a bad spot that I wasn't nervous because all I could do was make it better.
That doesn't surprise me given just the state of Disney's running the show.
Yeah.
Blockbusters these days,
Well,
that's a given.
the thing that's said without being said is that Disney, and what's really interesting with this whole thing is Disney never seemed to be the problem. The
Mm.
problem seems to be, and this is kind of what was, I mean, it's kind of what he said. It was post director's cut. Everyone was like, oh no, what's going on with this movie?
Oh wow.
And so they brought him in, especially because the third act was not, and this is where anything official on this has, I don't think, ever been said, but it's a lot of speculation and rumors. The third act was just a disaster.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, the movie was more convoluted. Like plot
I
lines
can
were
believe that.
were combined. And so I forget what else he says, if there's anything else, but he was like yeah, like it was fun for me, like I got to do this. And he's like, by the end people were looking to me to make the call on certain things. So that's why Tony Gilroy got the call to make Andor and
Mm.
Gareth Edwards didn't, which I think is so
Wow.
interesting because I think it's almost like, and this is putting the like best spin on it, and I've heard other people do things like this, it's almost like even Gareth Edwards knew, like, oh man, we're in trouble, like somebody's got to do this, like somebody's got to fix this up.
It's
And
weird it
so
could get that far out of your hands
yeah,
that by the time, it could get out of your hands while you're filming, but it's that far out of your hands that the director's cut. I mean, you're so close to the finish line.
yeah.
How did you not notice this thing was a monster, you
Well,
know?
and that's such an interesting point. And then what I think, and this is kind of why I wanted to give us a little bit of space, because it's kind of my like what I've been processing that's so interesting, is this movie is an example of a fanboy with the setup,
Hmm.
and then somebody who does not give a crap
Hmm.
with like kind of the final execution. Someone who admits they have no reverence for Star Wars, but they just want to make an interesting story, kind of coming in and cleaning things up, while also like some studio involvement and some influence from the fanboy remains enough to have like legit Easter eggs, kind of wink and a nod Easter eggs of like they bump into the guys from the cantina on Jeddah. And 'cause that's what's so interesting to me is like this movie, and this is I'm speaking as a Star Wars fan here, like this movie is lifted up as the example of like the pre-fan service era of Star Wars
Hmm.
because the fan base got PO'd so much with later stuff. But this movie has so much fan service. This movie has so much Easter eggs. The guys from the cantina, anything with Darth Vader in
Hmm.
this movie is like, and as much I like it, and like I can enjoy fan service. That's kind of like, I think a disclaimer in all in this rant, but like that's just fan service. The movie does not need that to happen at all. The movie doesn't need Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin to be in it at all. So it's like it's this
Good
weird
old Grandma Tarkin.
Grandma Tarkin does not need to be in this movie. And it's like, and that's fan service. There's legit Easter eggs kind of back when that was like actually things hidden in the movie had to find. And like that's not as much an issue. But like I just find it so interesting that like this movie is like put in the camp of like contrasting, oh, the like let's play with our Star Wars toys, but make it live action Star Wars, that is The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. it, but it's put in the same camp as something like Andor, which
Hmm.
you haven't. I mean, you haven't seen any of what I'm talking about, but like, which is like, what if we made a drama that just so happened to be set in Star Wars
Mm.
world, like a political espionage drama that just so happened to be in this familiar world.
See that right there. I don't want to derail you, but if
No,
I may, I'd like to make a very brief point, which is going to derail the conversation, but
do
remember
it,
where you
do
are.
it.
One thing I pointed out to Dad while I was watching this last night, and this was about maybe 40 minutes in. As I said, I remember one of the things, because like as a kid, I liked Star Wars because of the space and the monsters and the lightsabers and the pew pew pew, right? Like we all like that stuff. And I was like, I remember what I don't like about Star Wars. Politics. What's more boring than politics? Politics in space. And I said, I think I figured it out. Star Wars, a vast majority of what a lot of the setup of this movie was, what a lot of the prequel trilogy was, especially the Phantom Menace, like the very first one. There are literal whole Senate scenes, as you recall, where we're just watching people talk about the politics of space. And that's all that's happening. There's no subtext. It's just talking politics. And I realized that what Star Wars does a lot, especially in the later portions of the franchise, is they're kind of doing the equivalent of if you went, okay, I'm gonna watch a James Bond movie. And then instead of like all the cool globe-trotting stuff and him doing espionage, which is interesting, because technically when you think about what Star Wars is, it is espionage. It's like it's super high stakes. It's civil war in the galaxy. There are rebels, there's a resistance. Like that should be fascinating. And instead, it's like if you watched James Bond, but you watched all the parts where James Bond had to book a hotel, find the right price, get on the plane, and then his flight gets delayed. And then eventually he makes it to Morocco. And then once he's in Morocco, he finds the next clue that he needs. And he's like, well, crap, now I got to go to Russia. And he gets back on his laptop. And it's like, if the whole movie was that, that's kind of what Star Wars does like half the time. And I
Yeah.
just, I just wanted to point that out so that the audience could hate me some more, basically.
Well, and my point is, why does Rogue One make the cut? Like,
Right.
what's the difference? And
It's those big
I,
chompers, man.
I
It's those
think I
big
think it's those
chompers.
chompers. I think it's the fact it does actually have interesting characters.
Hmm. Oh, by the way, you're
Well,
sounding
and
kind
by
of quiet again.
I'm leaning
There
away
you
from.
go.
There we
There you
go.
go.
Um, for one thing, it has like these interesting characters, um, who do connect with people who aren't just pushing a political ideology,
Hmm.
but who also aren't just a knockoff of a previous Star Wars character. I think the one who felt the closest to it, I mean, they're the one who felt closest to it is maybe even Cassian,
I was going to
is
say Cassian
Andor,
and Han Solo is kind of they're
but given
similar.
Andor, they're
Of course,
totally
they're
different
different,
characters.
but in this
They're
movie, they
like,
felt similar.
but yeah, you have yeah, but everyone else is like this new take. The Guardians of the Wills are like these totally different weird Jedi thing. There aren't like this movie doesn't get anywhere near the Force, yada yada yada. But like, why doesn't this make the people who hate the fan service stuff mad and this make the cut? I don't have a good guess. I really don't. But that's my observation that I kind of want to challenge that like there almost aren't camps in Star Wars. There's the bad stuff and there's the good stuff. There's like
Hmm.
stuff that's they've made that's flopped and not been good and it's like why did they ever think they should make this? And the Star Warsy feeling has been diminishing and I think this movie has a lot of it, so maybe that's part of it. Part of that's literally because this has like you pointed out, which I noticed this, it has the original score, which
Hmm.
or well not the original score, but very similar stuff to the original score, and a lot of modern Star Wars stuff doesn't quite have that. So it very like that's very easily a connection. Is this sonically feels like you've plopped down in the 1970s or 80s or even the the prequel trilogy.
Hmm.
But like and I'm not here to play Star Wars fan base politics at all. And no one who cares that much about Star Wars fan base politics is listening to this show. But it's an
Right.
interesting it's an I'd like to think it's an interesting observation because it's like, well, what gives? There's literally a scene of Darth Vader just being awesome for no reason but let's have a scene at the end where he's awesome.
Hmm.
He's in the movie just to be there and cool and tie together Mustafar from the prequels and Darth
Hmm.
Vader and Anakin and
Yeah.
so that's my rant that I kind of needed to get out. So thank you for listening to that.
Yeah.
Glad you're here for me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I got nothing. I think that's about
That's the
right.
show.
That's the show.
I don't know if you said on air what I should be watching next week. What do you want
Well,
me to be
the
watching?
schedule, my original conception of what the schedule is going to be kind of mixed up a little bit because now I have to reorient myself to what's coming out when. So this comes out what day?
The 17th. So
Okay.
the next week's episode will be out on Christmas Eve.
Okay. Well, then this will be perfect. You're going to watch 1988's Scrooged, starring Bill Murray, directed by Richard Donner,
Awesome.
score by Danny Elfman, really interesting supporting cast. It's a Christmas classic, and you've never seen it, correct?
I
You've
have
not even
not
seen
seen it.
pieces of it. Oh, this is going to be glorious. This is going to be great. Scrooged is on back when we had cable. It was on like 5 times a day, every day for like 2 weeks around Christmas. I've seen this movie probably once a year, every year since I was like 6.
Wow.
I may have missed a year here or
45
there.
years.
45 years. Yes, 45 years. I may have missed a year here or there. And oftentimes it would come on, I'd just catch it like from the middle or from whatever. But it's one of those movies that for me, whenever it's on, and I don't particularly care for Christmas movies, but whenever it's on, I just kind of have to sit down and finish watching it. And it's a comedy. It is there's some fun effects in it. Aren't super over the top, but some fun practical effects and some things. And it's I think you'll be I'm interested to see what you think of this one. So,
Awesome.
Scrooged.
I'll check it out. In the meantime, you guys stay safe, be healthy, prep for the holidays,
Hmm.
and may the force be with you.
I'm with the force, force with me. I'm with the force, force with me. Yeah.